You're listening to Diminishing Returns, the podcast about sequels, prequels, spin-offs, and reboots. I'm Chris Scott, and across from me, he's not an ugly motherfucker, but I'd say he's more of a sexual diplodocus. It's Mr. Alan Johnson.
How do pod people? The huge success of Rocky IV had seen a joke circulate among Hollywood creatives. Now that Stallone's pugilist had run out of earthly opponents, he would have to fight an alien in his next outing. This punchline would be enough for screenwriters Jim and John Thomas to begin work on the script that would become Predator. The plot would pit an elite covert military unit led by Arnold Schwarzenegger against an extraterrestrial big game hunter in a Central American jungle. It was an 80s spin on the Richard Connell classic short story The Most Dangerous Game, with impossibly muscular heroes blasting their way through proceedings. On its release, critics slammed the movie as mindless and derivative. Audiences, however, flocked to see it, making it one of the most profitable movies of the year. Since its 1987 release, the film has undergone something of a critical reappraisal. Now seen as a genre classic, even ranking in Empire magazine's 2008 list of the 500 greatest movies of all time. A sequel would of course follow, due not only to the huge box office of the first film, but the popularity of the Dark Horse comic book series Predator: The Concrete Jungle. The sequel, originally intended to have Arnie return as Dutch, tracking a predator in the mean streets of LA alongside Danny Glover. When Schwarzenegger passed, the role was rewritten as Special Agent Keyes and played by Gary Busey. The follow-up, though praised for its casting of Danny Glover as an action hero, was again met with a negative critical reaction. And this time audiences agreed, with the film failing to replicate the success of the original. The mid-90s would see several treatments for sequels come and go. However, the Predator would not return to screens until the mid-2000s and the Alien vs Predator crossover films. And the 2009 film Predators would fail to reignite interest in the series. 2018 will see Diminishing Returns favourite Shane Black write and direct a fourth instalment in the franchise.
Payback time.
So with Predator celebrating its 30th anniversary this year, there's no better time to rewatch Predator and Predator 2.
So Al, we're going to be talking about the only Hollywood Predator that we like. But this is the one that we enjoy. I'd also like to point out, it's also the only white person with dreadlocks that I can stand. And frankly, the original Predator blew my tiny little mind when I was a wee guy.
Yeah.
Starts off, we're in space. Oh, spaceship drops a little capsule off. What the hell? Cut to, there's a helicopter gone down in Val Verde. Yes, this is part of the Val Verde cinematic universe. I'm not sure if it's actually ever mentioned in the first film.
Various sources seem to cite this as being part of Valverde. However, Steven D'Souza, who wrote Die Hard and created the Valverde cinematic universe, he says that Predator's nothing to do with it.
Steven D'Souza basically puts the fictional country of Val Verde in as many films as he can, and although he didn't write this film, allegedly they've taken Val Verde as the country that they're going to. So they basically have to go behind enemy lines in this country, this American special ops team, because the helicopters went down with like an important government minister and they need to rescue him. But they get to the jungle, shit's got fucked up, there's skinned bodies hanging from trees and fucking all sorts of shit. They track these bad guys, these rebels, these guerrillas or whatever, and they basically kill them all, and then they're like, cool, job done. Hold on. What's with all the skinned dudes? It's fine. We'll get away. Shit, we're being hunted by something. What are we being hunted by? It's a goddamn predator. Yeah, baby. It's got glowing eyes. You can't really see it. It's got a cool rocket and shit on its shoulders. It just takes them off one by one. Some of the greatest badasses in cinema history against one of the best monsters, aliens, whatever the fuck you want to call it. It's one of Arnie's best films. And so basically, after it picks off all his team, Arnie has to face the predator alone. And of course, he overcomes it with his brains and brawn, and frankly, what a goddamn film. That is I've had like 2 hours sleep, I've been drinking all weekend, Pressy of The Predator. I'm assuming everyone's seen it. If not, fuck up.
Then for the sequel, we fast forward 10 years after the events of the first film, where early detective Lieutenant Hartigan, played by Danny Glover, is caught in the middle of a turf warfare between two drug cartels, Jamaican voodoo gang and the Colombians. And this is taking place during a massive heat wave in Los Angeles, which which seems to have attracted another predator who's now hunting in the city.
Would that be not the jungle, but the urban jungle? Come on, guys.
Jungle, yeah.
Right? I mean, I say that really shittily because you can be a dick about it, but it's actually a great idea. That is a great idea.
Yeah, so a predator shows up to use the city as his hunting ground, but now instead of Arnold Schwarzenegger, we've got Danny Glover.
Yeah, that's another muscle-bound 6 foot fucking mate. Oh no, it's the other guy from Lethal Weapon. Which actually is one of the things I like about the film.
Yeah, it's funny, obviously, in your recap there, Chris, that you pointed out that they've gone down into Valverde to rescue this. I think it's a senator,
cabinet minister or some shit.
That could all be part of the cover story that Dylan, played by Carol Weathers, had fed the team just to get them down there.
Well, that's it.
It's interesting that obviously the political fallout from Predator was that Richard Chavez, who plays Poncho, he became like an advocate for like Mexican American rights. Jesse the Body Ventura became the governor of Minnesota. Arnie, of course, became the governor of California. And even Billy, Sonny Landham, had a run for governor of Kentucky before some terribly racist remarks.
Oh, really? Oh, good. I didn't know about this.
Before some terribly racist remarks had his vote withdrawn from the from the party.
Outstanding. So, I mean, you've actually touched upon it there, right? So it seems like a lot of politicians was like, that, was it the Skulls Society or whatever?
Yeah.
Skull and Bones Society.
Yeah.
Like, that's a breeding ground for politicians. Actually, the main breeding ground for politicians isn't Yale or Harvard. It's Predator. It's a John McTiernan 1987 action flick. And let me be very clear. I hope that continues. I hope Statham runs for mayor of London. What I want to talk about first is the variety of absolute badasses in this film. Every motherfucker in Predator is a fucking badass.
One of the film's biggest strengths is that through a bit of clever, tight writing and a bit of excellent wardrobe stroke production design, we're introduced to these people very, very quickly. And as soon as we're introduced to each character, we immediately get the measure of him and his level of badassery within this crew of badasses. Everyone's got a unique weapon. Everyone's got a unique way of wearing their army fatigues.
Yep.
Everyone's just got like a little shtick. Like very quickly, we know who everyone is. Whereas when we go to the second film, the group of detectives that are surrounding Danny Glover, there's nothing unique about them. The most unique amongst the group is, of course, Bill Paxton.
Yeah, but that's because Bill Paxton could read the fucking phone book and you'd be like, I want to hear more about this guy.
And of course, Bill Paxton is the only person to date that has been killed by a Terminator, an alien, and a Predator. That's testament to the man's career. Bill Paxton, we hardly knew you.
Every few episodes we bring him up because he's the fucking man, and we feel his loss sorely.
The elite squad who are going on this rescue mission in the guerrilla-held territory in Valverde, every one of them is just beautifully drawn.
Yeah.
So quickly, but so succinctly.
Yeah, this is what you want from a genre film. It's like, these aren't interchangeable dudes. And watching this, I used to rent this all the time from the video store. I remember just a wee guy where I was talking about like the skinned bodies and stuff. Scenes of this are indelibly imprinted on my brain. The skinned bodies, the wee alien ship at the start, all the way through, just bits, cool as fuck images. And every one of those characters, when they popped up, it was like seeing an old friend. I was like, yeah, it's Bill Duke. Fucking yeah, man. And I wanted to point out, actually, when you're talking about it, says, let's be very clear, there's no time for chicks in this movie.
No,
there is one chick, and she pretty much says, fuck all. It's a dude's film,
It's the epitome of 80s machismo. This is just dudes on a mission.
You say machismo, I say machismo.
There is no room for a female character. Certainly not like a character that would have an arc and grow and express.
God, am I right, guys?
And I think this was the first home video cassette that I purchased with my own money.
Yeah, love it.
I remember Barry Norman talking about Predator, and that was the thing that I was like, holy fuck, I need to see this movie. Arnold Schwarzenegger in this movie looks fucking amazing. I don't think he's ever looked better.
Like, fucking right. I mean,
looks so good. His face
ripped,
is really drawn. He's ripped as fuck.
But like in a fucking cool way.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about this, right? Okay. And I know everybody kind of mentions it, right? When he goes and meets Dylan the first time, he was like, Dylan, you son of a bitch, right? And then they like have like the CIA got to pushing pencils, and then they do the arm wrestling, but like they shaking each other's hands. Then it turns into arm wrestling. But there's just like a little 10-second shot of their biceps just fucking rippling in the sun. I'm not gonna fucking lie, man. Like, I would jerk off to that shit right now. That is fucking super hot. I'm a straight man.
Straight as a dime.
You know, some people are all about the bass, all about the vagina, right? But that is fucking cool as shit, man. And it made me think as the film goes on, because there's like, you've got Jesse Ventura, right?
Yeah.
And obviously he's got that line that we kind of referenced at the start. I'm a goddamn sexual tyrannosaur, right? Now before that, he says a line that I am not going to fucking say.
Yeah, there's some off-colour language.
Language that, frankly, I mean, this is 1987. And it's still shameful. You know, some language against our gay brothers, our homosexual brothers. He uses the F word, and it's really jarring now watching it, because it really makes you go, I love all these guys. And he says that, and you go, oh. But what I did realise watching this is that 80s action movies managed to be both homoerotic and homophobic at the same time, which is kind of impressive. It's just like full-on ripped dudes fucking showing their guns, getting their tops off, but at the same time saying some fucking shit that you're like, you know,
not cool, guys.
Yeah, not cool. And the stories you hear about, like Arnold and some of the cast would get up like an hour before they had to go and start working out, so that they were just looking at their fucking peak.
Yeah, you've really got to be made of pretty stern stuff if you're going to wake up at like 4 or 5 in the morning, run up a mountain in rural Mexico,
and then lift fucking
then come
weights.
down, lift weights, then shoot for 12 hours, then run up the mountain at the end of the night.
But they all look fucking cool as shit, man.
Yeah.
Just an absolute parade of badassery.
With the exception of Shane Black, who
is a badass in an entirely different fucking way.
Yes. So he's surrounded by these like men mountain, like just these giant fuckers.
It's the 80s, man.
He is comically tiny, but those guys as a group are so convincing that you buy that he's there as a radio guy.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to be this behemoth.
Shane Black is not, is just like a normal dude. He's got specs on, which I love. Yeah. Where it's like, we need this fucking go to this jungle territory where it's like, all this shit's gonna happen. And it's like, why don't we get a guy with specs? Wear contacts, man. Do you know what I mean? Like, those are gonna fall. They've really not thought. So the story behind Shane Black. So Shane Black, I mean, if you listen to this, you know how much we love Shane Black, right? Shane Black, the wonderful screenwriter of Lethal Weapon, The Nice Guys,
director of Kiss Kiss Bang Bang,
Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, Iron Man 3,
Last Boy Scout.
Last Boy Scout's so fucking good, man. He's just awesome, right? And they brought him on as an actor, and were trying to get him to rewrite some of the script.
Well, he apparently was there because it's John McTiernan's second movie after Nomads, which was a bit of a flop, but it was interesting enough to get him the gig for Predator. Schwarzenegger saw this Pierce Brosnan movie, Nomads, was like, this guy can really create stuff with very little money. He's the guy we need for Predator. But then Joe Silver, who's just worked with Shane Black on Lethal Weapon, is like, oh, I need somebody down there in the Mexican jungle that can help keep things on track. It's a lot of money. There's a lot of big names down there.
Moving parts.
Let's keep things going. So Shane Black gets hooked in as a performer, but he's there to surreptitiously rewrite where it's needed because they're writing on the fly, and also just to check that McTiernan keeps a steady ship. Very clever move, but makes for a great character.
But supposedly as well, Shane Black goes, when he gets the gig, he's like, oh no, I'm not rewriting stuff, you've hired me as an actor. Like, fuck you guys. Which is fucking cool. He's like, no, you've hired me as an actor. And the thing is, he comes across really well. Like, you wouldn't have thought that's a guy who's like a really good writer going into acting. He just looks like he could be that guy in those sort of films. So you've got Arnie, obviously, is Dutch, absolute badass. He meets Dylan. Dylan is the CIA guy. It's Carl Weathers, right, from Rocky. He's like pulling him into the job. You know what I love in films about badasses? That, like, right? And, oh god, guys, this is just my milieu, right? Oh, that's right, I said milieu because these films deserve respect. So he comes in and it's like, why didn't you do the Lebanon job or whatever? And Arnie's like, we are a rescue unit, we're not assassins. You know what? These guys have fucking morals. Now for the next hour of the film, all you do is indiscriminately just kill, right? They're just like shooting random dudes and like not even like, guys, let's talk about, just coming in, just like mowing down motherfuckers with machine guns. He's got a line, guys. It's like, you seem like assassins.
But it does relate to the thing that we talk often on here, is that it gives backstory to these people. There are all these other stories, and it's great. It really adds to what's going on, and it leaves a little bit of mystery. You're drawn in because you're like, oh, these guys have done stuff.
Yeah. You're dropped into these guys' lives, and these people have had lives and connections. Carl Weathers knows Arnie. Even the little bits like Shane Black telling the dumb jokes, and when he tells the second joke and the guy laughs, it's like they actually all kind of get on.
He tells a joke to Billy, and he's always trying to get Billy to laugh at the joke. He's finally gotten one of these jokes.
Billy, right? That's the Native American dude.
Yes.
What's his job in the thing? Oh, is he a tracker?
He's a tracker.
Yeah, that's right. We mentioned earlier on, it was the 80s, different time. You've got a half Indian tracker in every action film. That's just how it goes. Again, I'm not condoning it, but it is also awesome.
Now he's played with Sonny Landham, who started his career in pornos. One's called Slippery When Wet.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ.
So Sonny Landham, who died this year in August 2017.
Oh.
Again, another massive guy on set. Now, they had to hire a bodyguard for him, and it wasn't, the story goes, it wasn't to protect him, it was to protect the rest of the cast from him, because apparently he was an absolute maniac. At one point, threw or tried to throw his bodyguard off a balcony just for a bit of drunken hijinks.
I would not want to work with somebody like that. Do I want to hear about that somebody who was on the Predator set? Yes. Yes, I do, everybody, because that's fucking awesome. I want these people to be badasses in mental cases in real life, and they are. It's amazing. Like, the stories behind that set, like, they're just all trying to outdo each other, wind each other up, and be the most muscly looking dude on the set. That's fucking sweet. Yeah. That's kind of what I want. So I have a theory that I've not thought out well, like all of my theories, apart from my one about who really did 9/11. Did anyone say mole people? The 80s was your perfect time for big, dumb action adventures, because effects had got to a stage where you could do cool sci-fi shit, whatever, but it hadn't got to the stage of CGI where there's no danger and there's no real heft and physical threat.
Yeah.
And you could have films like Predator, RoboCop, Alien. These were hardcore films where people got murdered and there was gross shit, and it was like, yeah, this will be like RoboCop and this, I assume, are both 18s.
Yes.
In the British classification.
In the Barry Norman excerpt, he says, this film's for adults, but not grown-ups.
Oh, I mean, literally, that just describes my perfect film.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the thing. Whereas now there's this sort of, well, if we're going to throw all this money into it, there needs to be enough of a demographic to see it. So you then end up not getting the gore. We
don't even get blood squibs now. That's such a rare thing in an action movie.
Skinned bodies. I saw this when I was probably 8. It was out in 87. Yeah. So I probably saw it in VHS when I was either 7 or 8.
It came out in the UK in December 87.
Right, so I would have saw it in VHS.
In time for Christmas.
Right, exactly, right. It's what Shane Black would have wanted.
Yes, exactly. He loves a Christmas movie.
Pretty much every single film he's done. But, you know, to me as a wee guy, I mean, I'm not like the sexual tyrannosaur that I am now. By that I mean I've just got tiny hands. He's a wee 8-year-old dude who could handle his shit, and I remember seeing that and just going, holy fuck, that is fucked up. Cool. Yeah. I'm like, I need more of this. And that's what Predator is. It's so well shot. It's so right. So I want to talk about what a clever thing is, that for the first 40 minutes the Predator's basically not in it, right?
Yes. A lot of the mixed critical reaction about the movie is about the sort of slow pace at the beginning, but watching it now 30 years on, it's incredible. It makes it much more atmospheric.
It's so tense.
It is like guys on a mission movie, and the big set piece that you would think is the mission happens like 30 minutes in, 20 minutes in, when they blow up the Guerrilla Village. And
absolutely, Guerrilla Village does sound like a kind of hipster place where you would go now and you would get like, you know, fucking craft sandwiches.
Okay, and I don't know if you noticed, one of the guys, one of the long-haired gorillas is actually the Uzi wielding Colombian drug baron from the second film.
Oh wow, that's cool. So that start of that film is it's so well done. So even if you were coming in blind, you see spaceship, something drops down. They don't really talk about it. So then you're going, well, I know that's going to come into it. So you're spending that first 40 minutes kind of on the edge of your seat going, this is going to fucking happen. That first 40 minutes just works as a great action film.
Yes.
What they've done is they've just went, this could be a great action film up until this point, but then we spin it to the sci-fi part. And what it also does, you have the tension. You're just sitting there going, fuck, that thing's watching them. We know it's watching them as an audience. We know there's something else going on that the characters don't, which of course always builds tension. But then you then see them attack that guerrilla village to try and see if they can save any hostages,
which has a really nice cold-blooded kill in it when the guerrillas kill that hostage at point blank range.
Oh yeah. It's cold. And then you know what it is? That's also then, don't worry guys, these are super bad guys, so we're now going to massacre fucking scores of these people, and it's fine because you saw them. We all cool with this, guys, you know. Which is great. It's a lovely bit of like action movie business to go, see, those guys are dicks, so now you're cool with us killing them. But then when they actually go and do the mission, go in and kill all these guys, what it shows you is how badass these guys are. There's fucking big machine guns. There's Arnie improvises by throwing a car into the fucking compound and exploding the car.
I love that. Like the whole mission, they really do feel like a special ops team. Everyone moves quietly and silently, almost through all those dead leaves in the jungle without making any noise. Everyone's silent in the position. They take out a few guys, and then Arnie just decides to push a truck into the village.
Aye, let's make some shit happen, right? It's fucking brilliant. But what it shows you is that it then establishes that these guys actually are the best of the best. Yeah. There's like 6 of them, and they take out about 80 dudes.
Blaine doesn't even have time to bleed.
One of the great lines, brilliant. But also what I love about that as well is, again, the Ersatz moral lines that they have, where it's like, he's literally just walked into rooms. Fucking some of these guys might be chefs. He's just like, blah, 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 blah. They're all getting killed. Bill Duke is fucking knifing motherfuckers left, right and centre. Bill Duke with his cold dead eyes. I love Bill Duke. But, you know, Arnie's in there and he's just throwing a flaming car into into people, he's shooting, he's knifing, and then he turns round and it's like a chick's there, and he's like, oh, well, I'm not going to kill you. You're like, what? Like, that's his line. Oh,
Especially she was sneaking up behind him to kill him.
exactly.
But,
Here's my question.
Okay.
Is it because she's quite cute?
But he doesn't see her. He just knows someone's behind him. He just turns around and hits her on the face with a rifle butt. Like, he doesn't even know it's
But he would then shoot her.
Around.
He would then shoot her if it was a dude.
I guess.
Come on. Like, I think it's quite obvious when you watch a film. It's like his face goes, oh, a lady? You know?
I guess it just falls into that sort of trope of like the hero is only a hero if he's saved a princess. So it is going back to that very
like,
80s.
It's like the assassins that, you know, no women or children, which is once again why we are men's rights activists. So that in films, all we want to see is an assassin that kills only women and children.
He's like, I'm only out to do the dogs, the kids.
Like the easy targets. Like kids.
The old, the infirm.
Yeah. Who'd you kill? Mostly dementia patients. But that serves to show these are badasses and these are the best of the best.
Yeah.
So then when things go south and they start acting scared, because that's what's great about it, is that actually once they realise that there is something hunting them and that they can't fucking fathom what it is, they all start to freak the fuck out. And these are guys who've just cold-bloodedly murdered about 80 people.
Yeah.
And so that really has a power to it. When you see these guys who are just like your standard action movie, Dirty Dozen badasses, suddenly be like, we need to get the fuck out of here. Brilliant performances.
The Guerrilla Village also reveals the real reason that Carol Weathers Dillon has brought them into the jungle. It's not about the rescue team that went missing. It's about these guys are in the jungle planning something. Russian military are there. And the funny thing is, that's something that was really going on in the world at that time, but it was completely closed down. So it's an interesting from point of view that it's actually reflecting like an actual political situation.
Wait,
without...
so there's also really predators, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
This movie was a big reveal of...
That's what the Illuminati wanted you to see, you see. We always put it into films, don't we?
But at this point now, like you're saying, when they start to realise something's going on, the film shifts in tone, almost becomes like a horror film. It works like And Then There Were None. You know, as we've talked about in Friday the 13th, it's the same sort of plot. You have a group of people in a remote location and they're being picked off one by one, and there's no one that can come to help them. And they keep establishing that the chopper is like 15 clicks away.
I believe they need to get to it.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's great. This section then, when suddenly things shift and the Predator becomes a bigger feature in the film and the squad begin to be killed off. That period where the hunters have become the hunted, to use an old hoary cliche, it's brilliant. It's really great. The critical reaction was that it's too derivative. And yes, it does play out exactly like Alien. You've got like this really small core group and they're being killed off by an alien. But
like
isn't it? This one's in a jungle, guys. Like,
also, I know, and I get it, and it's like, oh, here's the guy that's kind of put them on the mission, but there's no ulterior motive. These are design classics.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's ridiculous. That is, people don't like awesomeness. There's some people that can't appreciate awesomeness. They've got no love in their lives, no hope in their heart. Man, they can't appreciate the fact that you've got Arnie, Carl Weathers, Jesse the Body Ventura, Shane Black, an Indian tracker. Right? And a fucking alien in the same film. Bullshit, man. It's fantastic. It still holds up like a motherfucker. And like when they get picked off, some of the deaths are brilliant. Look, Carl Weathers gets his arm shot off. Billy, the Native American tracker guy, he is one of my favourite moments of all film history, right?
Right.
I mean, Rosebud's kind of okay, but the Predator's already taken out a bunch of them. And, you know, even as I say, the way they all get killed is kind of cool and interesting. I don't want to kind of go through all the kills. I think that would be quite dull, to be honest with you. Predator's picked off most of the fucking unit and they're running to try and get to the chopper 15 clicks away. And it's like Arnie, the mute hostage chick, and Billy.
They're dragging a wounded guy, like Poncho's like he's been wounded.
And it's like, fuck, we need to get out of here, man. Everyone's dying. We don't know what to do. And Billy has been kind of the whole film a bit freaked out and like, there's something wrong here. And they're crossing over like a bit of river over this big log. And Billy just fucking stops. Right? And is just like, fuck this shit right now. He then throws his machine gun into the water. I'm going to say that's a mistake, right? Throws a machine gun in the water, pulls out a big ass like fucking knife, like it's like almost like a machete.
Yeah, he's going, man.
And then just cuts himself in the chest and it just stands there like, fucking come on then, Predator, let's fucking go for this. And brilliantly, like, it cuts to the next scene while Arnie's and that have fucking left and all you hear is a scream. It's like, yeah, that didn't go well for you, mate.
I quite like how they almost set it up like it's a sort of a ritual, like a sort of Native American ritual for Billy. You know, it's almost like doing a sun dance, whatever. You know, he bloodies himself with a knife to get ready for combat. Like classic horror film style kill. Your imagination action fills in the gap for you, especially because the next thing we see of Billy is like 2 scenes later when the Predator's pulling his spinal cord and his skull out of his body.
I mean, seriously, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen, man.
Let's talk about this. John McTiernan is his second film. This is before Die Hard.
It's not a bad filmography, yeah?
There's camera moves in this that are brilliant.
Imagine
it's
making
so
Predator.
well constructed.
Imagine making Predator, and that's not your best film. like not even close.
And like you said about like 80s macho action films, McTiernan basically did the arc. You know, he does Predator, he does Die Hard. Towards the middle of the next decade, he does Last Action Hero, which is a sort of seen as being like a big disaster, and you know, the sort of like death nail of that larger than life sort of like overly muscled caricature of like an action hero.
Predator, he celebrates it, as you've seen, muscly dudes all looking great, which is also should be the tagline of our podcast, because that's about us, right? Proper, like nailing the action part. Then he flips it halfway through by making them freak out and stuff like that. So again, a bit smart. Die Hard itself is effectively the end of that era, because John McClane is just an everyman guy. Alright, as you'll hear in previous episodes when we've talked about Die Hard franchise, it then fucks up. But there is a real intelligence and a care in this film, which sets it above most of these sort of films. So then we get to the end of the film. Arnie is attacked, tries to fight the Predator to let the others get out, to let the lassie that tried to kill him they won't kill, because he's all like, I don't want to kill women. Ugh, alright. And getting pushed into a waterfall, and then he climbs out of the water at the bottom of the waterfall, and he climbs into the mud, and he ends up covered in mud. And he comes across this thing that the Predator can't see him when he's covered in mud. It covers his heat signature, and that's how the Predator sees. What a lovely little... Throughout the film, you've seen the Predator see heat signatures, and there's this elegant little daft genre, hey, he's accidentally come across this, and you kind of see Arnie clock, and here's another thing, Arnie gets slagged off for his acting, right? Yeah. I don't want to see Arnie play an 18th century poet discovering his homosexuality and how he can live with that in, you know, society, right? I mean, there's actors that can do that, but to do this well, this sort of film, Arnie is like the best at it. He is your grade A action dude. You actually see that in Predator, like his actual acting choices are what you want for this. It probably wouldn't work for Shakespeare in the Park, but for this, it's perfect. We don't want to recount the whole fucking plot, but you know, he then sort of figures out, okay, I'll cover myself in mud, and I actually wrote this down, right? How cool does Arnie look covered in mud? Like, super cool. Yeah. He's looked cool throughout this whole film, but when he's covered in mud and you just see those fucking eyes come out, I mean, he looks banging.
Yeah, for that whole sequence when he obviously rejects technology and sort of reverts to a more primitive, primal, savage method to kill this technologically superior creature in the Predator, he starts to make traps out of vines and sharpened sticks. It's great, but that sequence was like 3 weeks of shooting for him, basically caked in mud. Can you imagine, like, every day just having to be slathered in mud for 3 weeks?
Suffered for his art, man.
Oh, absolutely. That sequence of events to turn the tables on the Predator, to bait him into Arnie's lair, to set, you know, beacon fires and the like to attract the attention of the Predator, and then finally to destroy him by dropping a giant log on him.
And by that, you don't mean a shit.
No, it would take an actor whose physical presence has to be of the stature of Arnie's to even remotely convince you that he could face and go toe to toe with a 7'2" alien with
fucking
claws.
Fucking brilliant.
And that fight is great. And I'm so glad that latterly it's seen as the classic it is, because it shouldn't be dismissed as just being this crappy.
Only 2 days ago I realised that it wasn't well regarded when it came out. Like when I was reading stuff, I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, I think we've grown up in a world where just everyone's gone, have you seen Predator? It's amazing. And I've never for a second questioned it.
At the end, the Predator kind of blows itself up. Yeah. What I like about that is kind of like a mushroom cloud that comes up. And I love the idea that Arnold's kind of just outrun it for a bit and went, oh, that was a nuclear explosion. Better just shake that off a little.
Here's the thing. Everyone seems to think this is a nuclear explosion. It's well documented as a nuclear explosion. I have 2 issues with it. So,
are you ready?
First of all, if it is a true nuclear explosion, the EMP from the nuclear explosion would have brought the helicopter down. The chopper would have fallen out of the sky. And secondly, it's an alien from an alien world. We have no idea of how they've developed their nuclear arsenal, their process for fusion or fission in nuclear arsenal. So I just think it's a big explosion, because there's no way Arnie's outrunning a nuclear blast. He would have just been a shadow.
Well done, I guess, for thinking this through.
Okay, well, for me, fuck those people that say it's a nuclear blast. I don't care. I don't believe it.
Because I think it's a nuclear blast.
because I want Arnie back for a sequel. But yeah, so he's rescued by the helicopter. The helicopter pilot at the end of the film is played by Kevin Peter Hall,
Who is the actual Predator?
who is the Predator in the suit. Now, he wasn't originally cast. I'm sure many people know that it was originally Jean-Claude Van Damme, who, off the back of No Retreat, No Surrender, but before Bloodsport, was hoping to further his action career by getting the job as a Predator. So they're in the Mexican jungle. They filmed the first portion of the film up until Hawkins is being killed, and they have Jean-Claude Van Damme in a suit who is being an arsehole throughout the entire production. He's wearing this giant suit. The suit is a big issue. They've not worked out how the Predator looks, so they have him in what's described as a red lobster suit.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of it, but that's obviously what they've got to do for the effect.
You can't green screen in a jungle because everything's green, so you have to use the opposite. So it's a red suit. So they filmed up until the point when the Predator drags Hawkins' body off into the jungle, and Paramount executives are seeing the dailies, and it's taken a bit to get them out from the jungle to the execs, get them back for them to review them, and they see this and they're like, no, let's shut it down. The production's out of money. So they actually shut down production for a while, and that's when Kevin Peter Hall's brought in, who's 7'2".
Well, that's the thing. Jean-Claude Van Damme is actually, despite being a muscle-bound action hero, is quite small.
Yes.
He's like 5'10" or something.
He's not a big guy.
Not like me. Kick your ass, Jean-Claude.
Jean-Claude, JCVD's let go from production. They get Kevin Peter Hall in, and he is known to audiences as being Harry from Harry and the Hendersons.
Yeah.
His physical performance as a Predator is great.
Yeah.
And inside that suit as well, which not only designed by Stan Winston, who's one of the great creature designers of cinema, but helped along by James Cameron, who on a long haul flight with Stan Winston was saying, you know, oh, wouldn't it be great to have a creature with a mandible jaw? At which point Winston adds it into his doodles of what the Predator's going to look like.
And that's what I want to say as well. I think the design of the actual face of the Predator is really cool, but also its armour, like the little gun with the 3 dots, all that is just grist for the cool mill.
I think without overstating this, it's one of the greatest action films of all time.
Yeah, it's one of the iconic films that made Little Chris like just fucking go, this is amazing. And by Little Chris, I don't mean my penis. Now, it is an enduring action classic for all the reasons that we've said.
Absolutely.
Predator is awesome. Anyone thinks it isn't awesome can suck my fat balls. Predator 2, let's just say divisive.
I'm not going to be so kind. Predator 2 is a real shame. There's a lot of conflicting reports as to why Schwarzenegger never came back. I think basically money is the key. But
that's the one I heard.
I have heard that he read the pitch of the script, which is where they want to put the Predator into the city, and he did not like the idea. He apparently dropped out in favour of working on T2, which, you know...
I mean, fair enough.
If you can't stick around to make what could be one of the greatest sequels to one of the greatest films of all time, then, you know, you might as well go off and make another of the greatest sequels to another of the greatest films of all time.
I mean, you can't go bad decision there, pal.
Yeah. What we have is the setup of the Predators now in the mean streets of LA, but there's a weird time leap because the film came out in 1990, but it's set in 1997, because the first thing is Los Angeles, 1997.
Honestly, I'd forgotten about that. And when I watched it, I actually had to move it back. Did that say 97? Hold on, didn't this film come out way before that? And I moved it back and it said Los Angeles 1997, and I was like, oh, it was set in the near future when it came out. Oh my god, this is amazing.
I can't really work out why they felt the need to have that gap.
Watching it today, I was like, you know what? That makes sense. Because in my head, it was set in the time it was released.
Right, yeah.
But when you watch it, it's kind of aiming for not quite hitting the heights. I'm not saying, and we differ in that I quite enjoyed it today. Again, was probably still drunk, so I'm not. I'm not going to give it 100%. I really enjoyed it, and I remember really enjoying it as a kid. To be honest, you could have put the Predator on anything. I think I would have enjoyed it as a kid. It's basically kind of aiming for that kind of RoboCop-y, everything's gone to shit, and you know, so that it's like the Jamaican and the Colombian gangs. It's a bloodbath in the street, and even the cops can't deal with it.
Yeah.
They don't have the resources to deal with it.
That was the part that I did think, okay, I see why they're sort of hypothesising this more violent future.
Gang culture, which
and
in the 90s was a big deal.
Well, yeah, but it's funny, in real time, we didn't get the LA riots until, 96. I can understand there's, maybe a palpable real world tension that's going on in the city at that time.
Also,
crime
cool
rates
big
on the rise.
guns. That's another reason. The guns they have look cool as shit. It's a very light touch of future tech, which I actually really like. There's loads of wee bits. There's a bit when they go into a crime scene, and Ruben Blades, whoever his character's called, thinks Danny.
Danny, yeah.
Who's Danny Glover's partner. He has this little black box reader thing that he's just put. And what I liked about it is they didn't make a big deal about it. It wasn't like, hey, here's some future stuff. It was just like, hey, here's some fucking future shit that I'm using. All those wee touches were quite nice. It has its flaws. I'm not going to say it's but it's not as good as the original. So here's what I want to talk to you about Predator 2. So it's moved from the jungle to the urban jungle.
Yeah.
Right. So here's the thing. What do we normally moan about when it comes to sequels, Sal? That's just the same fucking plot, the same place. They try and make it too much like the original. What we want to see is those characters in different settings. Is that not something that you have said multiple times in this podcast?
Yes.
Is that not true, Mr. Johnson? I ain't no big city lawyer, but I put it to you, Mr. Johnson, that you are full of shit. Because that's what they do in Predator 2, man. They fucking go, you know what? We could do it in the jungle again. But all we're doing is making a lame fucking Xerox of the first film. We're going to bring in the gang element, which is cool as fuck. All of that shit is cool.
I agree. Putting the Predator in the city is a nice idea. I'm all for that. The issue I have with the film as a whole is that Predator in the first film is just hunting whoever happens to be around. So he just seems fortunate in what he's picked as his hunting ground, that these guerrillas are there. And then obviously Arnie's crew comes in and he's like Armin Clover. He's just going to skin and tan his hide and he's going to have an Arnie rug in his living room. In this second film, the motive for the Predator, how he's picking who he kills when he's in a populated area, there's no internal logic to who he's killing and why. Why should he have latched on to these criminal elements? I understand that they are heavily weaponized, because there's a joke on the subway when everyone has guns. If he's just hunting people because they have weapons, which is what happens in the first film, Arnie says, you know, he didn't kill you because you were unarmed. Because these criminals are not the finest grade A American beef that Blaine and Mac and...
I think unlike Predator, which nails its ideas, it's hitting the bullseye every time. There's a lot of great ideas of which the execution sometimes doesn't hit. So it opens in a kind of street battle between the gangs and the police, right? And it's basically going into an armory. They've got a block of flats where they've got this armory. So to me, I think it was like, oh, here's just this massive congregation of weapons.
Okay.
That's what I took from it. This isn't just people with guns and shit. These are these people that have built up massive amount of weapons. And then during that fight, you see Danny Glover come in. Here's where I'm going to say one thing. I think Danny Glover's brilliant in this. There is one major flaw that Danny Glover has when it comes to a film like this.
Is he too old for this shit?
No, I like it. I like it. Danny Glover cannot point his gun without looking a bit lame. His actual performance is fine, but when he moves his arm to point a gun at somebody, it looks a bit, it just doesn't hold it well.
Yeah, for 1990, for a film that's the follow-up to an Arnie classic, I think it's a really brave move to cast Danny Glover as your lead. I'm all for it. He's great in this. I think it's a really brave move that they have cast an African-American in the lead role of like this massive blockbuster, and I've got no problem with his performance. My issues are just with the story that's unfolding.
Dear listener, what Alan seems to have a problem here is with a film that has a predator that fights voodoo-loving gangsters with Bill Paxton and a fucking alien ripping people's skulls and spines out of their bodies. Oh, I'm sorry, Al. What kind of world do you live in where this is not at least quite enjoyable?
I live in a world where it's Haitian people that worship voodoo.
Oh, for fuck's sake, this fucking cunt.
Yeah, so Jamaicans...
It's set in the near future in 1997.
So just those details, I do think it's really weird. The director was born in Jamaica. He's an Australian-British director, but he was born in Jamaica. Racially, I find it a little insensitive that it just...
Great. Alan's found a fucking woke way to criticise Predator 2. That's the most Alan fucking thing I've ever heard. Holy shit, man.
But the gangs...
Dude, ganja-loving, voodoo-worshipping Jamaicans. I didn't even think Jamaicans had anything to do with any sort of voodoo religion. I just assumed that was some shit thrown together. You know why? Because it's fucking cool.
They just seem like a Grand Theft Auto gang, kind of cartoonish thing.
There's no killing what can't be killed.
Yeah.
There's no stopping what can't be stopped.
What's he called? Big Willie?
King Willie. Why aren't you loving this, Al? King Willie's voodoo gangs.
Okay, maybe it is just a commentary on white America's fear of the black man, and
or maybe it's just like, let's put some cool fucked up shit together. Not everything has to be racist, Al.
I mean, but yes, I like the Predator in the urban jungle. Some great sequences, and I like the fact that LA's under a heat wave, and that's why the Predators, so the conflict and the heat wave of, it's a perfect storm of what the Predator's looking for. That's why he's there. There's elements of this that reminded me a lot of Aliens, and obviously it's the second film. Particularly the scene with Gary Busey, who is another like brilliant 80s movie guy.
Again, think about what you're saying here. This is a terrible film that has Gary Busey in it. Come on, big guy.
So he comes in and replaces Schwarzenegger, and the role's rewritten, and
he's like the arsehole government guy who comes in and tells the local cops, leave it, you don't understand what's happening here.
And in the movie novelization, there's there's some backstory about he's had interviews with Dutch from before. So Busey's this sort of like government stooge. So again, it's like the CIA are involved. These guys have been tracking the Predator. And in amongst Busey's gang is Adam Baldwin from Firefly. And to see that baby face on the screen.
He's so young.
So young. Those guys are all dressed like some kind of alt-right group. You know, they were all in matching beige Docker pants.
With quite a nice costume choice.
And so they seem to have been on the trail of this alien from the Dutch incident in 1987 for the last 10 years. They now come into the middle of Danny Glover's investigation, and they are like, look, we supersede you here. That just gets under Danny's skin. He's like, I'm on the case. I'm going to bust this drug ring. So Danny Glover continues to investigate.
And that's what I like about this. There's bits of it that maybe don't work as well. I do admit that. What I like about it is that first film, which was basically an action flick with the sci-fi twist. This is like a Dirty Harry film, but with a sci-fi twist. He is the gruff, aggressive cop, because there's a great bit where like they bring up a computer screen with Danny Glover's like police record on it, and it's like
prone to violence,
obsessive compulsive. You shouldn't have hired this fucking guy.
No, surely his psych eval would have just gone, this guy is mental, show him the door. So him and Ruben Blades are both in one scene have fedoras, and I was like, oh man, I only wish in 97 that fedoras came back.
A bit like when I watched Johnny Mnemonic.
Of course,
recently,
everything's quite anachronistic for like.
It is basic. Everything looks like a music video from 1989 to 91 because it's that's the time. So I think I like the idea that Danny Glover's a sort of Dirty Harry cop. I actually think the Predator then it sees Danny Glover kind of attack these criminals, and I think the Predator then goes, this is worthy prey. This is why it stalks him a little and kind of checks him out. But then it starts like fucking with him, like killing his partners and leaving like trophies and stuff about.
These are parts of the things that I don't like, is because it's playing out like a conventional crime movie. It's not really like a hunter stalking prey, which is, obviously the events of the first film take place over like one day. This is like a sequential thing. It just doesn't play for me, and that's the issue I have when I'm watching this film. But there is a weird addition to the sort of Predator lore that the Predator sort of makes a base in the meatpacking district, because it turns out that he's carnivorous and he's eating the cattle carcasses. But now we've got nice little additions to his tech. Now we have this frisbee thing.
It's kind of like a disc boomerang thing that can cut through anything.
Yeah, the expanding and contracting spear. And my favourite of all is the shrinking net.
Yeah,
he shoots the net and it shrinks down on one of those Jamaican voodoo guys. Brilliant little bits of tech.
Yeah.
So there's nice bits of Predator tech, and there's subtle changes in the Predator costume to let you know that obviously it is just another of that species of alien. Played again by Kevin Peter Hall, who
his last film, I believe,
really sadly passed away from age-related illness from an infected blood transfusion.
It's
a
a
real
slight
shame.
cliche, but by all accounts, a gentle giant.
Yes.
Unlike myself, an ungentle giant.
Kevin Peter Hall as a Predator again is brilliant, and there's nice moments where the cloaking effect is really improved.
Even
like
in the
couple
3
of
years,
or
2.5 years,
they've
definitely
really refined that,
and I think the look of
the
Predator looks great.
Yes,
the mouth and all that even looks even grosser.
Yeah,
Danny Glover even comments on it at one point. He calls it like pussy mouth or something.
It does have a sort of vaginal quality when the mandible jaw opens up,
just like the mandibles on a vagina. Right. Anyway,
now an aspect to Danny Glover's character that we've not mentioned is that first
nice
film,
chords,
beautifully attired. It looks like that weird 90s thing of retro like 40s.
Yeah, if they look like a Dick Tracy cartoon.
Yes, He's got saddleback shoes and all that jazz. Like he's wearing wool trousers in 109 degree heat.
He's not thought this through.
No, he's not. But they've given his character vertigo, and obviously rooftop chases are something I love in cop movies.
Yeah.
But now with Glover, when he gets involved in a roof,
he's too high up for this shit.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what it is? It's a solid 6 and 7 out of 10 for me.
At the time, didn't prove popular at the box office.
Did all right though, like just not great.
57 million back off like a 35 million budget. So I mean, it made money, but just the original was 25 million budget and brought in nearly 100 million. So a big difference in the box office return. But a lot of that has to go to Arnie in his place at the absolute apex of action cinema. He'd come off the back of Commando,
one of the greats. Now let me be clear. Commando's not a great film the way that Predator's a great film, but in its own completely amazingly campy way. God,
Yeah.
Commando's
You
still
can
great.
absolutely see how Commando has set Schwarzenegger up for
Yes.
Predator. So the film doesn't do well, but it's got a really big cult following, and I think not because of the film itself, but just because it opens out Predator lore and it expands on the Predator.
I mean, we have to talk about it, right? The trophy room.
And of course, the big Easter egg in the film is Danny Glover finds his way, like he's battling this alien all through the sort of back alleys, and obviously he's combating his vertigo as he gingerly climbs down a drain pipe and follows the Predator in the building. And at that point, there's a little bit of broad comedy I don't like, when there's just this middle-aged woman with a broom chasing the Predator out of her house.
But there's a great line. Come on, when the Predator escapes through the house, and then Danny Glover chases it, and the woman looks at him and he goes, "It's okay, lady, I'm a cop." And she says, "I don't think he gives a shit." Come on.
This is the aspect of it. Like, it's just too neat that the Predator has fallen down a shaft which leads neatly to its spacecraft, which is somehow underneath the city.
Yeah, I think there's a way of making that work. I get the feeling that there was probably more in the script.
Yeah, I would hope that there's some kind of cut or deleted scenes where Danny's got to track the Predator for further to get to the ship. So they get to the ship, that's fine. And then at this point, he goes into the sort of like trophy room on board this ship.
Wait, also, do you not think the ship looks cool because it's kind of like a techno Aztec? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not an obvious inside of a spaceship.
Got a nice look. There's a lot of aspects to it. That production design inside the ship's nice. Don't get the knee-high dry ice.
Yeah, there's like fog, little bit of fog at the bottom of the
it's
ship.
as if they're all fans of the mission. So like,
yeah, the Predators are real goths.
But yeah, so Danny gets in. He's stalked his Predator. He wounded it. He's shown that Predator he's the boss. But he's now in the trophy room, and on the wall of the trophy room, of course, the big Easter egg that all fans of sci-fi fantasy love. There's a xenomorph skull on the wall.
From Aliens, an alien. It's the alien from that. Brilliant.
Ties it in. These guys have been across the universe. They've killed like other species. So of course they've killed aliens.
Yeah. Again, 11-year-old Chris.
Just
you have
his mind.
no idea how excited I was when I saw that. Tumescent at the thought. I was obsessed with Aliens. Aliens was my favourite thing from the age of about 9 to about 13.
Yeah.
And one of my other favourite film series, as I be like, hey, come on, it's all connected. Yeah. I was just like, this is the coolest thing ever. You know what? Even tonight when I was watching it, fucking still cool. I don't give a fuck. I'm an old nerd. This is some old school buying Starburst magazine, crying because you're alone, fucking nerdy bullshit, man. Made me who I am today.
It's not a world that was expecting Easter eggs, so when you spotted something like that, like it was a thing.
It wasn't. There's none of the shared universe crap and crossover stuff.
Oh yeah, that was just yet to come on this franchise.
Yeah, I mean, you know.
But then it gets a little close encounters because suddenly in the trophy room, other Predators start to decloak from their invisibility.
After Danny Glover has killed the Predator that was stalking.
To go back to the novelisation again, it's actually the lead Predator that arrives, and he's so disgusted by the dishonoured Predator because a human has bested him that he, the lead Predator called Greyback, and he kills off the Predator, the city hunter as he's called, but obviously in the movie Danny does in the Predator, and it's handled in a way that it feels convincing that Danny Glover is an admirable action star, as we've talked about. He's not a Schwarzenegger, so he can't rely on brute strength, but he has slowly worn down this Predator to the point where he's bested him, which is great. And then there's this mysterious bit when sort of 6 or 8 other Predators decloak and then have this sort of admiration for Danny Glover for having bested one of their numbers, and they hand over this flintlock pistol. Now at this point,
old-timey pistol.
It's a date on it, like 1715. Does this set up that the Predators can travel through time?
Or is that they are just really old?
Are they like immortal, or you know, longevity's
That's what I was like, oh, I kind of assumed it was more of a they're really old.
Although, because obviously if they've hunted aliens, they also have stasis and cryo chambers. So of course it's just the distance and time
or
and space.
maybe they just hunted like a guy who owned an antique store and we're just like, oh, I can take this guy's got Danny Glover's like 1715 and the Predator on his Predator line was going, no, I got it last week, mate, from fucking Jim's gun shop.
There's a Renaissance fair that's it's never getting back.
Just like, what the fuck's happened here? All these fucking cunts are skins. This is murder.
There's a backstory for this pistol in the comic book franchise.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Listen to me, Jesus Christ. If they let her know the words cool means. Yeah. I really like the thing when the Predators come out and it's done without words. It's quite well done. I think the fact it kind of opens it out, it lets you know that they hunt other species. I think you're right. I think that's why it does have a lot of love, this film. And it's probably why I loved it as a wee guy. I think it's a decent sequel. Its ideas are better than its execution. It's got smart ideas that maybe doesn't pull off 100%. And I like Danny Glover.
I think just for me, it's okay. There was more in it that I disliked than I loved.
Again, still drunk. So, like, there is a worry that I will, like, in 2 months' time, I'll be like, holy shit, this is terrible.
Caveat
Predator, as they say in Latin. Early 90s was just, to me, was hip-hop, LA, and sci-fi. So this film was just like, hey, come on in, big guy. You're gonna love this shit. And I was like, yeah, I do. Decapitates a fucking LA gangster voodoo priest. I mean, come on, guys.
I do love that sequence when he's on top of the building, the hotel, and he uncloaks and he's got the spinal cord and skull. Like, but I think that's my problem. The rest of the film doesn't live up to that image. I think there's another way that it could have done this City Hunter thing, and I would have really enjoyed it. But we have Mr. Black.
So coming back around, Shane Black is going to make the new Predator.
The funny thing is that the original script of Predator was called The Hunter, and then it became The Predator, and then it became Predator, and now Shane Black's adopted the name The Predator for his project.
I have faith in my man Shane Black. If Shane Black directs something or writes something, you have my money.
I mean, it can't help but be interesting.
30 years on, Predator still holds up like a motherfucker. It's still great, enjoyable. I think there's a lot to enjoy and love. And the second one, it's coming off the back of a great action film. A cast stacked with guys who are made to be in that film. But the second one has voodoo gangs. I mean, ooh, pretty close, right?
Pretty close.
I love it. If you would like to tell us your views on Predator, Predator 2, or even any of the other Predator ancillary movies.
Sega Genesis game.
There's a lot of Dark Horse comic books, isn't there? But if you want to get in touch, email us at diminishingpod@gmail.com. You can get us on Twitter at diminishingpod. On Facebook, you can get us at Diminishing Returns Podcast. You can send us an @message at Diminishing Returns Pod on Facebook as well. On Instagram, we are Diminishing Pod. We have a blog at diminishingpod.wordpress.com. On YouTube, search for Diminishing Returns and you'll probably find us. We're an independent podcast. If you like nerdy shit, if you like listening to us talk, I bet your friends would like to hear us talk nerdy pish at them as well. Please send them a link to the podcast. Make sure they download the right podcast. Get it on their phones, their tablets, however they listen to their media.
If every single person listening could introduce one person to this podcast,
or 1,000,
it would dramatically change the shape of things for us.
We really appreciate it. We would like you all to do that. We want more listeners because me and Al have something empty inside and we need validation. Or if you want to maybe bequeath me and Alan £1 million if we spend the night in a haunted house, that would also work.
I'm down for that.
Excellent. We're going to go into the concrete jungle of the West End of Glasgow, which, if you know that, is not at all that sort of thing. Thanks again for listening, and we will see you in a few weeks for our next In-Betweeny bonus episode.
Thanks, guys.
Like, I didn't watch Mystic Pizza and go, oh man, if only there was like some muscle-bound dudes shooting massive guns.
That's exactly what that movie needed.
That's also exactly what I would have said. Wait, hold on a second. I'm a lying sack of shit. I think every film needs that.
If only the AIDS in Philadelphia had machine guns.
Wait, what? Like if maybe Tom Hanks fights actual AIDS?
Yes.
Have we just found the script for Philadelphia too?